Thanks for tuning in to our seller interview series. Up today, we've got a dropshipping business for sale in the apparel niche. Created in November 2015, this business makes $30,619 per month in net profit. And the listing number for the site is 40548. Now, we do these interviews to give potential buyers more information about both the seller and the sites they're looking to purchase. We hope these insights are helpful for you in making a buying decision. We got the seller with us today to go through the business and cover everything from niche selection to traffic and monetization. Thanks for coming on, Paul.
Sure thing. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. How are you doing?
Pretty good.
Excellent. So just to get this started off and get the ball rolling, can you tell us a little bit about your background in building and running online businesses? Obviously, you're pretty high up there. I mean, anyone that's doing 30K a month with a single site definitely knows what's going on. So how did you come up with this idea and where did you start from?
Well, basically, I had started experimenting in dropshipping around October of 2015, and I had run into like a few decent niches, but at a certain point, I just randomly tried this one clothing niche, and it sold like fire in the beginning. And then soon I started just expanding and then finding that each one of the sort of sub niches bled into another sub niche, so that I would get visitors on my store, going from one category to another. And then I was sort of like seeing the connections of how they were all like one niche of people started buying from the other categories as well. So it all just sort of, I guess, clicked together for me. And then the site just continued to grow from there.
So basically you're saying that you start off with one niche and you notice that people were starting to go into other niches on your website, and you basically just grew the site niche by niche into covering several different niches. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. That's pretty cool. So describe, for someone that doesn't know anything about drop shipping or e-commerce, describe how does this website primarily make money?
So primarily through dropshipping, it's you first pay for the traffic. So as long as you make sure it's targeted, right? You have the item on your site, and when someone buys it, you have the money like in your possession, and then you go to where you find the item, be it eBay, Amazon, or AliExpress, and then you can order the item from a third-party supplier and ship it to the customer's info when they buy from your store. So it's, I would say it's a pretty safe investment in testing new items and new niches, and definitely there's very low upfront investment cost.
Yeah, definitely. That's one of the things I really like about drop shipping is versus an e-commerce or where you're sourcing the product yourself, or Amazon FBA business where you're also sourcing the product yourself. There's very little upfront cost. And so, in fact, I recently just wrote an explainer article for the e-commerce niche and mentioned that they could add drop shipping as a way to test new offers, very cheaply before, spending all the money on the inventory and the sourcing. So that's definitely one of the things I love about drop shipping. Now, the business is going really, really well. I mean, you're doing $30,000 in net profit a month. So I got to ask you, why are you selling the business instead of keeping it and growing it?
Well, the main reason I'm selling the business is, although I can see the steady growth in the business, right now I'm doing 30,000. I just feel like I would have a wider range of investment opportunities with a greater upfront cash, basically speaking.
Interesting. So you already have kind of a plan of what you're going to do with the cash once you sell. Are you doing more like online investments, or are you moving into a more of an offline play?
I don't have a set plan yet, but I'm thinking a lot about branching into Amazon FBA and just basically other monetization methods besides dropshipping. So basically, I don't really have a set plan. Just I think when it gets to that point, then I'll make a plan.
Awesome, man. Well, you'll definitely have quite the cash influx to have a steady runway, whatever you plan on doing.
Yeah, for sure.
So moving into a little bit more on the site history, what was the trajectory of this business when you first built it? Like, what were the first few weeks and months like?
All right, so the first week was like, I was running another website in a completely different niche, and I thought, might as well try this. It's Thanksgiving, I'm bored, whatever. So I set one item out, and I had no idea it was going to work at all, right? 0% clue. And and then it started selling, right? And then it was getting like $3, $4 conversions, and I was pretty surprised in a good way. And soon I was like riding the wave, and I was sort of just like letting it grow and like maintain because I was like, this is pretty good. And then at a certain point, I put a few more items on there, and then I guess the main shift was I started realizing the potential. So I, instead of focusing my all of my attention on the first website I was running, I started really focusing my attention on the second website I was running because I was like, the revenue for this website is definitely gonna beat the first website, especially in the long run. So the trajectory was like, all right, if one item did well, a few more items did well, and then I went ahead and imported like 50 to 100 more items and, other categories of apparel as well onto the site. And that's when it really started, taking off.
That's amazing, man. And, I think that happens to a lot of people who they throw things at the wall. And sometimes the thing that we're just, like you said, you're just bored during Thanksgiving, throw this item up, and now you have this whole track record of an amazing site doing some pretty awesome revenue. It's amazing how things work out, the things that we don't expect to work out, right? Or
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
expect to do as well as they do.
I wish I could replicate it, like
If only.
all these other sorts. Yeah.
If only we all had that knowledge, right? So,
Yeah.
you must have learned quite a bit during this whole process. What did you learn? Like, what is one thing from building this site that just worked that you're going to apply for your future sites or investments?
I think the main thing that I really learned along the way was really like how to expand in terms of scaling and ads. Because at first it was basically like two distinct segments in the history of this company. In the first part, there was it was decent revenue, and in the second part, I learned a couple advertising tricks, and that's when it really started blowing up. And then I also ended up finding ways where I didn't really have to put time into adjusting each of the individual ads. I could sort of adjust them in bulk. So I would save a lot of time over there. So basically, I would say that, with new items, it's sort of just like throwing them at the wall, like you said, and basically finding the ones that work. And then for the ones that do, it would be aggressive advertising.
That's awesome. I think the ability to scale paid advertising is just an amazing ability. Now, you said you were bulk testing. Were you using like software like Ad Espresso or something along those lines?
Oh no, I was using Excel files, and I just had a column for formulas that would adjust based on it.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So going the opposite direction here, what did you try that didn't work, that just flat out failed?
A couple things I tried were I tried to put things that were too far out from the sub niches, like completely unrelated, just to see what would happen. And I think I probably spent a little bit more on testing those things than I should have. Otherwise, probably, you know, not much else.
Well, that's not too bad then.
Yeah.
So
nothing crazy.
moving into traffic and earnings, and you talking about learning a few advertising tricks that really upped your game. It reminded me of one of my favorite jokes amongst affiliate marketers that do a bunch of paid traffic. They always have the one in the parentheses that says one weird trick. I always see that ad. I always think it's
Yeah.
one of the funnier jokes out
Yeah.
there for affiliate marketers. But
Yeah.
moving into
I mean,
traffic,
it's basically it's not. I wouldn't even say it's a trick. It's just doing it like a faster way. It's just saving yourself time, really.
oh
That's
man, but that's huge. If you can shave hours
Yeah.
off of your day, you
Yeah,
can
I
do
mean,
so much more.
because if you're running like hundreds of ads, you're not. It would be a little bit out of your way to go through each of them one by one. So I mean, at a certain point, you have to like figure something else out.
You don't want to spend 8 hours managing hundreds of ads, Paul? Come on.
No,
Man.
I don't really want to do that.
So speaking of advertising, let's talk a little bit about the traffic and the earnings of the site. So could you break down what kind of traffic is coming to the site? It sounds like it's mainly paid, but could you go into like, is that AdWords, is it Facebook ads? Do you have a lot of organic traffic or referral traffic coming in, or even direct traffic?
Yeah, like I would say about 2 to 3% is from organic Google SEO, just image alt tags and whatever, just showing up in the search results and people clicking those. But 97% of it is from Facebook traffic. paid
Very
traffic.
nice. Awesome. I guess I would explain the 100,000 fans on your Facebook fan page, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Which is also included with the sale, by the way, for the those listening out there. So a breakdown on the earning types. You mentioned it's drop shipping for all like one kind of vendor. Do you have multiple vendors going on there? Is there more than just drop shipping working on the site as well? Or could you go into a breakdown of what kind of earning types you have?
Yeah, sure. So our primary method of monetization is dropshipping. It's our only method. And we have a list of vendors that work out for us and that we have a good history from. And we also have a list of vendors that did not work out for us that well.
Ah, that's good to keep that
Because,
list as
yeah,
well.
sometimes, yeah, just shipping time was, dispatchment of the item was a bit too long. So we had to reorder from other sellers. And just, we kept a list of the ones that didn't work out for us. So as not to run into them again.
That's a really good idea. Speaking of that, I've talked to a few other people who have owned drop shipping businesses and are selling them, and some of them they have a formula of how they pick items. Do you have a formula as well? Like, do you look at the items on these like approved vendors lists and like that's the list? Like, do they have like a bestseller list, or do you have some kind of in-house way of choosing the items that you decide to test on?
Yeah, I would say it's a two-factor combination, items that have had more orders in their history. So say the history says a total of 1,000 plus item. Like 1,000 plus sales made on that item. I would definitely choose that over one with say 0 to 10 sales.
No, this
But
is what you're talking about is like the vendors listing how many of these
yeah,
items they sold. Okay, cool.
yeah. So for the vendors listing, like say if it had 0 to 10 sales, I would probably bet against it. But there's really I would still put money into testing it. So that's the first factor. And the second factor would be I would have to see if the style of the item matched the niche that I was selling in. So basically, it's just scoping out the style of what the vendor is selling and making sure it relates.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's a good tip looking at what is actively being sold. As far as finding these vendors, it sounds like you have quite a few that you've tested. How are you going about finding these dropshippers? Are you just Googling them? Are you contacting the companies on like Amazon pages, or how are you going about it?
Well, after I found a few good ones, we maintain communication with them, and from there on, it's sort of word of mouth. If there's certain things that they don't sell, and I'll ask around to see if and I see the item, I'll ask them if they know someone who they trust and sells the item as well.
It's interesting. So word of mouth has been one of your main ways of finding these new vendors.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Moving into more of the earnings, how stable are the earnings? So you're doing about 30K a month in net profit right now. Is that pretty consistent throughout every month, or is there big dips, or is there big like growth seasons? I'm assuming like Christmas and holidays are big months for you, but is there any dips as well?
I wouldn't say there's any dips. I would say it maintains a steady 30K profit a month. And then I was trying to calculate it by day.
No
It
worries, no
maintains a
worries.
steady, but then I had to do it by revenue, so I got like pretty confused. But it maintains like a 30,000 plus profit a month. But when it comes down to Christmas, that's when revenue really increased. So yeah, for last Christmas, it was still growing and it didn't really increase that much from the point that it was at. But then around January to February is when it really started increasing.
Nice. That's awesome. So, are you also adding content onto the site, like is blogging or anything like that? Do you have a requirement of how many new listings of new items you want to come up with every month?
Yeah, I try to get about 15 to 20 items at least tested every 2 weeks. So I would consistently just test those, see which interests did well for them and which didn't, and then I'm just always trying to refresh what people are seeing, and yeah, so basically that.
It's pretty cool. So you have 100,000 followers on your Facebook fan page, correct?
Hmm.
Are you also building an email list as well so you could mail out to these customers?
Yeah, so there's an email list of about 12,000 people right now. And on Facebook, we consistently are posting daily posts of pictures, fashion pictures related to the niche. And we're basically keeping in communication with our fans through that method. Oh, we're also holding, bi-weekly giveaways of apparel through our email list, and we're sending out weekly email blasts.
Now, speaking of we, that means you have a team, obviously, correct? I mean, could you go
Yeah.
into a little bit about who your team is? What do they do? Like, what kind of job roles do they have?
Yeah, so with my team, it's basically a back end and a front end. So the back end will be, email monitoring and basically just fulfilling the item on the appropriate website that we dropship from. And there's going to be some direct sales. So sometimes we will message people directly who comment on, our posts, and we'll give them discount codes.
Excellent. So, when someone comes and decides they want the site, that they want to buy your business, is this team going with them or is that your team?
The team is going with the business because they're already very trained in, how the whole thing is run. They're experienced with adding items to the shop. They're experienced with making the ad copies and adding them as posts. And basically, they're pretty much the backbone of the company.
That's awesome. So, you're actually going to let the buyer take the team with the sell.
Yeah.
Awesome. As far as opportunities with the website goes, what would you say would be the least risky path to grow this business? Let's pretend that you're going to keep on with this business. You're going to keep it for yourself. What would you do to grow it that would be the easiest or the least risky?
I would probably just be very stingy with my advertising spend, and then I would invest it slowly, but I would really concentrate on finding targeted things while using as little ad spend, like additional ad spend as possible.
And now, what would you do if you were incredibly risky, just threw caution to the wind? So I'm going to grow this site as quickly as humanly possible. What would your strategy be?
Oh, it would be to, import probably 100 items and then blast them out to various different interests and have an Excel export and see exactly what worked based on, I would name the ad name based on what item was selling, and then I'd name the ad set, the interest that I was targeting, and then in the export, I would do like a cross reference of what sold well based on the item and the interest, and then I would heavily scale the ones that did sell very well.
So you basically put everything back into scaling ads and testing new offers as quickly as possible.
Yeah, it's basically like a shotgun method. Just let's see what works.
I like that, the good old shotgun method. Going into the actual risk of the business. Now, this isn't someone that, not the risks that are where you're just being reckless with ad spend or anything like that, but the current risks that the business actually has right now. What do you think are the biggest risks that a buyer should be aware of with a business like this?
I would say the biggest risk is probably just ensure that the vendors, there's really good communication, and ensure that the products are being shipped to the customer in a timely manner. So definitely just maintain constant communication, or tell the team to maintain consistent communication with the vendors. And basically, as long as that's handled, then email marketing is also, email, like the customer support is also being handled as well. Then you can pretty much focus all your time on scaling and expansion.
Now, does your team take care of the customer service, or is that something that the actual vendors are doing?
Oh, our team fully takes care of it.
Excellent. Going to the work that's required, can you describe the amount and type of work you're doing to maintain the site?
Yeah, so basically, I'm putting in, over 20 hours a week just testing new things, but the minimum required is 2 hours a week, because I've really streamlined it to where if you wanted to segment your ads or put new ads, it really does not take a lot of time. And also, when you want to adjust your ads, it would probably take 15 to 20 minutes as well, just through the CSV thing. So you don't have to put that much personal time into maintaining the website.
No, it sounds like there's quite a bit of skills that you have earned over the course of building this business. But for a buyer that's coming in that doesn't really know much about drop shipping, or may not know a lot about Facebook ads, what kind of skills or requirements are there for someone not familiar with this niche to run the business successfully?
I would say just basic Facebook knowledge. The interface is I mean, Facebook advertising knowledge, the interface is pretty simple as soon as you get used to it. I got used to it in about 2 weeks. So if someone really has no experience, I would say that's the learning curve for them. But if someone does have experience, then, basically just how to use the Power Editor and how to view the metrics, like the reports on the ads is that's basically all the experience you need.
So you're just getting used to the Facebook advertising platform would be the main thing you would suggest for the buyer.
For sure, yeah. So I mean, like with the CSV import export, it's pretty simple. Like the formulas are in there, so if what they basically do is ensure that if you're spending too much and you're not returning too much on sales, then the ad is basically cut. So if an item is doing well, then that's when the budget is increased. And that's pretty much you export it from Power Editor and then into the Excel file. And based on this formulas, the budget is changed, and then you re-import it into the Power Editor. So it's basically just that simple.
So I have a question that's related to this. When it comes to choosing winning and losing ads, are the winners always the ones that make profits, or do you sometimes decide that one that's making too little profit is a loser and you decide to cut down on that ad? Is there requirements for you or what you would consider to be a winning ad, or is it just anything that makes a profit after the ad cost?
I would consider a winning ad to be anything that would at least come out, break even, because then I could always adjust the ad and work on my targeting. But like if it's, what I really like to see is when an ad set will convert at say $3, $4, because then I know that I found, like something that'll generate me profits over at least a month, many months. And that can definitely be scaled, because if it's coming at that low of a conversion cost, then, that shows a lot of potential buyer interest.
For sure. That is very good acquisition cost. So moving into a bit of additional information, would you commit to a non-compete? So someone buys this site, you're not just going to go start another drop shipping site in the same exact niche a couple weeks later.
Yeah, for sure.
Excellent.
I mean, yeah.
How much support would you be willing to offer the buyers? Like any kind of training or, phone-to-phone consultation on this stuff? What kind of support are you looking at giving them?
Yeah, I would offer 30 minutes of calling support a day for 30 days. But I mean, I'm definitely flexible around that to what the buyer needs, because I want to make sure that, if someone's going to invest in this, that they're fully comfortable with it and know how to like maximize the profit.
For sure. Now, I'm assuming you would also be giving kind of like a swipe book of all your successful ads that you've run, and obviously training on this CSV format that you use with bulk editing.
Yeah. So they get the whole ad account, and in it, there's all the reports and the metrics for all different items. And, I would basically walk them through the whole thing.
Awesome. That's great. So obviously the best scenario for both you and Empire Flippers would be if someone came in and gave all the money up front and paid for the thing at listing price. But would you be open to a split or earn say like someone does 70% upfront down payment for the business and then 30% on closing, or maybe 60% upfront and the remainder 40% paid out over say 4 months after hitting certain training goals or something along those lines? Would that be something you'd be at all open to?
Yeah, so I would say the minimum percentage I'd be open to is 60%,
60% upfront?
Yeah. That sounds reasonable.
Excellent. That's great. It always helps when a seller can be flexible, and also helps the buyer too a little bit to feel a little bit more comfortable with the purchase, obviously. So I have one last question for you, Paul. But before I get into the $1 million question, I want to give just a quick summary to remind our listeners a little bit more about the business. So the niche is in the apparel niche. It's a drop shipping business, obviously. It was built in November 2015 and has a monthly revenue $118,692 with the expenses of $88,073, mainly from Facebook advertising, it sounds like, and also I'm assuming your team expenses, with a net profit of $30,619. This website includes a social media account with 100,000 fans, as well as the email list, correct, Paul? You're going to give that over as well?
Absolutely.
So an email list of 12,000 subscribers will also come in with this purchase. So now, Paul, It's time for the big question, putting you in the hot seat here.
Mm.
What is your best pitch in 30 seconds or less on why someone should purchase this business?
So the best reason someone should purchase this is because it's in the clothing niche. So I mean, it's a niche that's been around for 80 years and it's definitely here to stay. So if you're really interested in increasing the revenue, there's multiple pathways you can take. You can target different advertising platforms, and there's so much room for growth in Facebook ads already. There's so many more things that can be found and sold, and there's so many people that we're already connected to, on Facebook in our email marketing list that, just if you're inclined to really grow it and to milk the profits out of this whole thing, then definitely, invest in it. Your time will be worth it. And, that pretty much is it.
Awesome, man. Well, for everyone out there in internet land listening to this video, if you're watching this on YouTube or another video platform and you want to check out this listing in more detail, please go ahead, click the link below this video. It'll take you to our marketplace. Now, if you're watching this on the actual marketplace listing and you want more information about this business, go ahead and click the make a deposit button. It'll take you into the next step in our process and you'll be able to see more about this business. The listing number for the site, again, is 40548. Paul, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Thank you.